Hi, I'm James Van Osdol. This is Con Carne, the podcast I record in my car. And my car is in the Uptown neighborhood of Chicago this evening as I'm recording. And Con Carne is presented by Alex Ross Art. AlexRossArt.com is where you go to look at, admire, celebrate the work of Alex Ross, the legendary illustrator, painter, comic book, graphic novel artist, a person who changed the game for how superheroes and comic characters could be portrayed and depicted on the page. He's the best, and you can see all of his artwork. You can buy his original artwork. You can buy signed things on alexrossart.com. I love his work, and if you are unfamiliar with it, let's say you haven't ever picked up a comic book or it's been years, Alex Ross Art is a good place to go to rediscover what makes the medium so fantastic. alexrossart.com. And Con Carne is also sponsored by this book, 90 Days in the 90s. My copy of 90 Days in the 90s has seen better days, but I've read through it a couple times. Books are supposed to look worn and read, as mine is, and yours will be too. 90 Days in the 90s, it is a time travel or a time travel story back to Chicago in the 1990s. If you were there, you remember what a time to be in and around Chicago, the music scene. Oh my God. Anyway, Darby in this book goes back in time. She hops on the gray line, goes back to the 90s. The question is, does she stay there? Find out. 90 Days in the 90s. Get your copy on Amazon or order direct at 90daysinthe90s.com. And Con Carne is also sponsored by Easy Automation, easy-automation.net. Are you a homeowner? Are you ready for a truly smart home? Doesn't the idea of minimizing your energy while maximizing your comfort sound kind of awesome? Maybe you need help setting up a fully integrated security system. Or perhaps it's time for a better Wi-Fi network so you can spend more time streaming, gaming, or sitting on work calls on Teams or Zoom while you work from home. Anyway, if you're like me, you're probably ready to take the next step in controlling your home theater, media room, whole home audio. Easy Automation will help you find the customized solution that's right for you. Their team has 30 years of collective experience in the industry and will tailor a service package that fits your lifestyle and needs. Get a quote by visiting easyautomation.net, easy-automation.net, easy-automation.net, or call 630-730-3728. J.C. Brooks and the Uptown Sound were one of Chicago's buzziest bands in the 2010s. Their breakthrough album, Want More, was a breath of fresh air and a reverent reassembling of soul and classic R&B building blocks that cemented their local Chicago reputation and earned them a lot of higher-profile fans. 2 years after that, they delivered Howl, a darker and perhaps underrated release whose title track has never really left my streaming playlists. Then in 2017, the Uptown Sound was gone with the release of Neon Jungle. Things got quiet in the ensuing years with only 10 live shows happening since 2018. And here we are in 2023. JC posted the announcement of 2 summer dates several months ago by saying, "Don't call it a comeback, more of a resurrection." And that's a really quick way to bring us current. I realized I should have booked this in the daytime because I really wanted to use the headline "Howl for Lunch," but by doing this over dinner, I missed my opportunity.
Howl for lunch, yes. Oh God,
I blew it. I totally blew it. Look at that! It's J.C. Brooks. We are in Uptown, naturally.
Yes, of course.
It's been several years since I've seen you, and in my introduction, I mentioned the fact that you earlier this year posted "Don't call it a comeback," but you kind of reemerged with a couple shows this year, and I thought I should reach out to JC and find out where you've been, what you've been up to, and what's coming next, because people in this town love you, and I just wanted to see, you did those 2 shows. I want to know, where are we at in 2023? But that said, hold that thought. We're in front of Gigio's Pizza in Uptown. We got slices of pizza. I should mention that.
Yes.
This is an Uptown staple. You are the person who introduced us to the Uptown Sound. So I thought we'd eat pizza in Uptown. All right, sorry.
Nice.
So what's going on, J.C. Brooks?
Nothing much. I'm glad you picked this place because it was the first place in Chicago that I found that makes a real East Coast slice. I'm from Jersey, and it's a thing to be missed. But to answer your question...
This place has been here forever, by the way.
Yeah, oh God, it's one of the best.
Look at this.
Oh.
Look at this.
Yeah. Oh God. The
Oh, you got to
Just
get
the
the napkin.
oil,
You got to do the dab.
just a little
Yeah.
bit, just a little bit. It's swimming. I'm sure it's going to be tasty, but yeah.
This is why you never wear white when you eat slices of pizza. I mean, we got the memo. We're both in black.
Or rather, if you do wear white while eating a slice of Gigio's, then like that's an assassin. You see somebody doing that, it's like, oh, that person is entirely too careful with their life. Psychopath. Yeah, too controlled. But to answer your question, where have I been? I've been since the pandemic, or coming out of the pandemic. I got a job as the managing director of the Annoyance Theater. It's in improv or general comedy theater, but
The Annoyance is legendary in Chicago. Are you kidding me?
Oh yeah.
It needs no introduction.
Okay, well, I
didn't
don't know.
realize
I
it.
don't assume knowledge. You know, I'm glad to be working with Mick and Jen. I've known them for years, and yeah, it's a cool transition that I never really thought that or never really saw myself making. But then again, that's been my whole life. Like,
But theater's not an unusual place for you to be.
oh, sure, but playing an administrative role is not that it's necessarily bad. It's just I never thought that. Yeah, life leads you all kinds of random places. I never planned on being in a band, so you know, I was a theater major. I was doing my thing in the Chicago theater scene, and then the band kind of came out of left field, and I jumped on that horse. So we're seeing where this one takes me. But and while I've been doing that, I've played a couple of gigs here and there. Or rather, over the pandemic, there were a couple of like socially distanced trio gigs with Jeremy, our keyboardist, and Kevin, our drummer, and then since then we've played a couple of gigs this year, as you mentioned. First at the Midsummer Fest in Andersonville, and then at this NASCAR Chicago street race thing.
Which, kind of a big deal.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was the craziest thing was seeing the lineup, like once everything got released, and it's like arena name, J.C. Brooks. Like, okay, well, thank you. It's always, you know, one of the blessings of this band has been we've always been mentioned in really excellent company.
For sure.
So I was just like, hey, you know, even if we're the smallest name on that bill, I'm like, look who we're standing with, though. Look at this shit.
Well, I mean,
So, like, it's,
New Jersey background aside, you have that classic Midwestern self-deprecation.
I was
You
just
pick
like,
that-
is
you pick-
everyone with low self-esteem from the Midwest, or is everyone from the Midwest have low
I think
self-esteem?
you picked it up along the way, but you bring up a good point. I mean, this city loves you, and I think you have carved out a wonderful place for yourself here. Going back to want more, that seemed like an awfully quick for you.
Whew. It was. It wasn't. To be honest, because we had been like building up to it like for about, or we started in 2007, and that came out in 2011, and it was yeah, I don't know. It was cool. It was definitely a lot, especially like our first South by Southwest, when I think we played about like 14 shows in 4 days, or 14 sets in 4 days. And they weren't like 20 minutes. It was at least a 45. So it was definitely like the hardest workout my voice ever had.
That.
Especially like touring. As I aged, the show's energy gradually moved down. But like I look back at those videos and I was just like, Jesus H. And I wasn't on stimulants. That's the thing, man. It was. So much energy. It's weird because especially after like being away for so long, it's a thing where like the show is still in your muscle memory and whatnot, but it still feels it still feels kind of weird, and yeah, it's interesting. I want to say that like it's not necessarily gone, but I'm out of practice and I would like to start playing more or something, because it's just
Well, it's funny. After relative quiet from J.C. Brooks, I mean, you're not one to just ease back in. Oh, there's the NASCAR gig. Like, you're not ramping up. You're just diving right in.
Yeah. We're going to be playing at the Republican primary debate coming up. We will take any gig.
Perfect fit. Perfect
like when
fit.
Solomon Burke played that Klan rally. He said, "Cash the check and let me get out of here alive, please. Thank you."
Oh my God.
No, it's I don't know what's next on the horizon. I know that our booking agent is keeping an ear open, but I'm also doing random other stuff like the past year, or rather since the pandemic. I've done 2 shows with Goodman, and like getting back to the theater thing. And like over the pandemic, I was a music director for a dance company, so I did a lot of original production. I wrote my first musical for them, so like it was there's a lot of things that I'm kind of I'm trying to do, and I'm in a very creative place. That's the thing with the annoyance. It's like I have an administrative job, but I'm around so many creative people and so many like kids. I don't know, like people with energy, and also people whose humor is different. I was like, it makes me feel older than I am. Like I'm about to turn 43, but like having someone explain Obama Prism to me, and that it's just like, oh God, it's this thing that's like beyond anti-comedy. It's like this. It's fun and it's interesting, and I like the absurdity of it. I've always been like a kind of fan of absurdism. So yeah. Anyway, sorry, the tangent.
Well, it's a podcast. Podcasts are made for tangents. This really is dangerous to eat in the car. I mean, my plate is almost see-through at this point.
You got to keep the bag under it. See?
I'm behaving like a rookie.
Yeah, right.
It's my first pizza slice.
I am also I'm used to maybe not always having the best luck with this, so I take as many precautions as possible. Belt and suspenders.
Because it is a race against the clock. That tip, the point of the slice, gets really soggy really quick.
Before it dips, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to stop talking here and try to take this on. So back when you were Uptown sounding it, Uptown felt different. Uptown's been through some changes.
Yeah. It's the new Brooklyn. It's so funny, that song "Baltimore's the New Brooklyn" was about gentrification, and it is very much doing that around here really, really hard.
Really hard.
I feel like I'm getting priced out of the neighborhood. I don't know. I'm probably going to hold on to my apartment for another lease, but yeah, I think that the people who own my building know that they could be doing more lucrative things with this space.
For sure. Every building owner here. But I mean, live venues, bars. Oh, and now there's some old school Uptown. Mm-hmm. We're being harangued as we're in the car. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So as you've been doing all this other stuff, and you've been going in different creative directions, theater directions, are you writing music actually for J.C. Brooks?
Yes and no. I'm writing music for Bobby Melodrama, or rather, that is the name of this project in my mind, and I've got about I don't know. I've got 8 completed songs and about 20 not completed songs, and they're, I mean, not like studio recorded, just, kind of produced like Logic demos that I want to get some actual musicians, actual guitarists on, because, I don't play, sometimes I try to play lines, and other times I just really comp together what I could from like the available samples, but I'm excited about it. It's also kind of challenging because I learned with the Neon Jungle, sort of that people kind of only want to buy one thing from the J.C. Brooks store. And,
I was going to ask that.
And that's soul. Yeah.
Neon Jungle, I think, has aged really well.
Really?
I think those songs have aged really, really well.
Thank you.
But I remember at the time, it was a seismic shift. There went the Uptown sound. You went in this more, for lack of a better way of saying it, pop direction.
The Neon Jungle was, kind of an experiment. We had always been like a genre bending band, at least in the live shows, and we just kind of wanted to record some more of the things that we kind of played around with in rehearsal, or bits that we did live that like were kind of out there, when we would solo, and stuff that kind of reflected other music that we talked about, listened to, like played in the van while we were touring, and so there were a lot of things that fed into the different sound. We also opened up the songwriting to everyone in the band, which was a bit of a change. So there were a lot of different things that happened around that time.
So that was a handful of years ago at this point.
Yeah.
Where's your head at sonically now? Are you bending new genres? Are you are you in your prog phase?
No, or a little bit maybe. I don't know. Some of it's Bowie-esque rock. Some of it's hip hop. It's kind of all over the place. It's more feeling based, and also it's kind of one of the things that makes me feel better about how all over the place it is that the music consumption culture has changed so much that it's single
So
based
much
now.
in just the short span of time.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily have to worry. I mean, you will eventually want a cohesive album, but it's okay to just fucking sprinkle singles and also just clear out the queue. That's my biggest problem. Is I am such an editor, and I never actually release something, because I will start working on like a new idea, and then when I come back to that first thing that was almost done, I want to change so much. And
I'm sure any creative soul who's watching or listening right now knows exactly what you're describing.
yeah, it's good to have a Jeremy, our keyboardist, is my writing partner for this project that we did a while back called the KID, and it's nice to have him as a sounding board for these things, because I sometimes don't know when to stop editing. So yeah, it's hard to work in a vacuum. I really do admire people who are like one-man machines, who are like very solo focused and whatnot, because I feel like it's hard for me to get a thing done without collaboration.
In the modern day, you could do one song now, another song a month from now. Like the strategy is different,
Yeah.
and I don't know if it's good or bad. Because I mean, I'm of a certain age. I'm several years older than you. I appreciate the full vision of an album. I appreciate being taken on that journey from side A through side B.
Sure. I think that that still definitely does exist. I think that the single drop or the single sprinkle is definitely more of a like promotional element, as opposed to like an artistic
For sure.
adaptation. Because people are still releasing like wonderful cohesive albums, and then there are people who are just releasing collections of singles, like song cycles, and you can tell the difference. And I don't think that thing is necessarily gone. I think that the single thing serves because of shortening attention spans and the glut of all sorts of content, like drowning us from every angle, that like it's hard to just keep a foot in the door or a finger in the pie or a what in the whatever, an X in the Y.
Do you suffer from shortened attention spans? Because I sure have post-COVID.
Oh, I mean, pre-COVID, I've dealt with ADD unmedicated for years. So, yeah, that's just a thing that I've always had. Focus is a rare gift. So, I think the rest of the world is finally catching up with me.
For sure.
I'm a pioneer in lack of focus.
Well, as you flit from one creative endeavor to the next, that's it.
Master of none.
It's interesting because I used to, pre-COVID and through COVID, I used to love to cook, and I used to read in bed every night before I went to sleep. I am not terribly interested in reading books anymore. And I spent my entire life devouring books. I'm not terribly interested in cooking. I could go to Gigio's every night and be happy at this point. And I think I just don't have the patience for either now.
Oh, wow.
I kind of hate myself for it, but that's just, I think COVID, and you mentioned the deluge of information. I think after doom scrolling through my phone so much, I've lost the focus and presence of mind to just calmly rifle through a book.
Yeah, I used to read a lot too. I used to crush books, and now I have I keep collecting books that I intend to read and never cracking the cover. So I have a nice little pile collecting dust right now. But yeah, it's a thing. I think that's the thing that I miss the most. I still cook. I actually I've always liked cooking, but the pandemic really enhanced my love of cooking, where it is very much a meditative thing for me, where I take extra long to do all my prep and put things in different bowls and shit. It's just a calming, it's like a fucking sand garden. I don't know, it's so I love that more now.
Not surprising, you take an artistic approach to that.
Sure. It's not even artistic. It's about, at its root, it's about creating order. It really it's controlled and creating order. I think so many of people's neuroses boil down to that. Even the modern fucking rush toward conspiracism is just trying to create order out of
for
chaos.
sure.
So it's just but this is my tiny little island of order, where I was just and there's our peppers, and there's our onions, and there's our garlic, and eventually I have to jumble it all up, but it's nice for a second.
So I should have consulted you before eating my slice. I should have embraced the bag concept before I dug in, because I have grease all over my thigh now.
It's all right. This is life. So,
it's all right.
Yeah.
But you knew better.
Yeah. Well, no. I eat a lot of pizza. What can I say? And I've eaten a lot of pizza uncarefully. So I've just learned. It's the hot stove, man.
It is. So, in the present day, it sounds like we'll be seeing some more of you.
Yes, it does. It is. It's so weird, because I am so terrified to make definitive statements about anything. But
people have no attention span. Even if you say something, they're not going to remember.
Thank you. You know what? Sometimes I was just this societal decline that occupies so much of my mind, can have its freeing aspects like that. Unfortunately, then the implication is the utter loss of meaning that we suffer everywhere. Where it's oh yeah, you say something, don't worry, nobody's going to remember. Nothing means anything anymore. Oh yeah, that's it. Shit. Fuck.
This has been the most uplifting part of the conversation.
I am a disaster baiter through and through, man.
Disaster baiter.
Yeah.
Chronic.
Yeah, it's actually a word in one of my songs, in defense of disasterbation.
That's amazing. JC, I just, like I said, I saw you post. I'm like, I fucking miss JC Brooks. And I saw an in. I'm like, I just want to get together and see where you're at and what we can expect from you.
Nice. Thank you. Well, yes, I am working on, I am in the middle of writing a sketch show with a couple of comedians right now that's going to be happening this fall. And then after that, I'm hoping to really put some focus on getting these tracks done and released. So I was just it's so far out that it's 2024, but that's also a realistic timeline where I'm I know that this show is going to occupy me until the end of October. And then after that, yeah.
I think as I'm wrapping up, I'm creating more questions in my head. Hearing you talk about doing the sketch show and all that, I have a lot of musicians and artists who listen to and watch this podcast. I think it's really interesting to hear you talk about your different creative pursuits. Is there any advice? I'm treating you like the elder statesman in the car, but advice to other creatives as far as following their muse, and because you've ended up in some pretty interesting places along the way, and you've kind of done it all on your own terms. Would you have some advice for someone?
Sure. It's sometimes it's really hard to follow your instincts, and I know that my biggest mistakes have been the times that I haven't. But just say yes to things and follow your instincts, and and be willing to, for me, be willing to collaborate, because it might not always take your art in the direction that you thought it would go, but it usually does help you see it from a different perspective, open it up. So I think collaboration helps me grow the most, or inspires me the most.
And you mentioned mistakes. Those are good, aren't they?
Yeah, mostly. I mean, well, mistakes in art, good. Mistakes in life, maybe not so much.
In art. You learn and grow from them.
Yes.
All right, JC, thank you for sharing pizza with me. Greasy, delicious pizza.
Yes.
By the way, we were out of that place for less than $10, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, that's the deal of the century.
Yeah, and you got a drink. I'm a camel, so I didn't need one, but yeah.
Not only did I get a drink, I got the classic Chicago pizza joint RC Cola family beverage, the Diet Right, pure zero.
Nice.
I do enjoy the cheap cola drinks.
Oh,
your Shastas, your Fagos.
That's what we serve at our, or that's our diet at our bar. If we got the RC and
Fantastic.
Diet Right, and no, it's not squirt. It's like some off-brand, not squirt, for our lemon lime. Yeah. Another thing I do, I bartend. It's weird. Used to twist balloon animals. I might get back into that.
Again, all creative pursuits, all are valid. All have led you here. I mean, not my car, but I mean.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. My creative pursuits have led me into a lot of strangers' cars. I'm every mother's nightmare.
I don't believe that's true.
No.
JC Brooks, thank you for doing this.
No, thanks for having me, James. Seriously.